You have the right to an attorney. Anything you say may be used against you.
You better back up, pal!
Your move, creep.
The future of law enforcement. RoboCop.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Hello everybody, I'm Brevin Thompson.
And I'm Cameron Simpson.
And welcome back to my channel, and continuing on with the 80s May of 2024, this time with the sci-fi action classic RoboCop, which was directed by Paul Verhoeven. And to say that this film is a masterpiece, I would definitely be preaching to the choir. And I remember first watching this on Stars. It was on cable one time. I watched this for the first time when I was like 15, and but before then, I've seen like bits and pieces of it on TV when I was a kid, but I didn't watch it fully until I was 15. And since then, I grew to love and appreciate RoboCop. It's just like one of those movies that, I mean, you're definitely entertained by it because of the action, and RoboCop is of course a badass, but there's also a lot of heart and humanity in this movie, especially when it comes to the moments where Murphy, aka RoboCop, begins to rediscover his humanity, and that is very powerful.
Well, he has a lot of emotions going through it at times. You just are strapped in for the ride because, man, is it one heck of a ride.
So the film takes place in a futuristic version of Detroit. Well, in this case, it's called Old Detroit, which is overrun by crime. And Omni Consumer Products, also known as OCP, has purchased the Detroit Police Force. And because of the high raise in crime and police officers getting killed left, right, and center, the cops threatened to go on strike against OCP. Now, when it comes to the scene where Dick Jones is about to demonstrate the Ed 209, I really like the look of this thing, and the stop motion for that, especially considering for 87, I mean, I would say, like, for that time period, it's like one of the few, like, stop motion effects that actually looks pretty good. I mean, because there are moments where stop motion in certain movies can look a little like weird. I did point that out when we did our review for The Terminator. Yeah. But when it comes to the stop motion for Ed 209, I mean, I don't have much problems with it for the most part. And they definitely do a good job of making this thing look so fucking terrifying, especially when it malfunctions and it just mows this one motherfucker down. It's just like, shit. Damn, it's not stopping.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, that's just brutal, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And the odd thing is, all of this was meant to just be a demonstration of how the next-gen type of police officer that they were looking for, that would never get tired, never get hungry, be on patrol 24/7, and in doing so would be able to put a stop in the ever-rising crime rate of Detroit and basically just take the city back.
That just went south, like, really fast.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
Yeah. But that's, of course, when Bob Morton steps in and presents the RoboCop project to the old man, and of course he's intrigued by it. And that's when the plot really starts to get moving. And when it comes to Peter Weller, who plays Alex Murphy, who eventually becomes RoboCop, he delivers a stellar performance. And despite the fact that we got like numerous actors who played this character after him, for me, he is the definitive RoboCop.
Yes, I could not agree with that more.
But I like that Paul Verhoeven gets us like a bit of time with Murphy as a human to help us like get opportunity to get attached to Murphy before his eventual transformation into RoboCop. I mean, we know that he's a family man, and he is wanting to be a good example for his son, especially him trying to do the trick with his gun. I mean, mimicking that show TJ Laser that his son loves, and he has a good chemistry with his partner, Lewis, played by Nancy Allen, and I like that. Like, despite after his death and his eventual resurrection when he becomes RoboCop, that they don't make Lewis the stereotypical love interest, but make her more of a loyal sidekick to Murphy.
Really seems genuine, and at the same time, it's like they truly do value each other as partners. Murphy and Lewis try to ambush Clarence at this factory. Alex says for the first time his iconic line, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me." And then he gets ambushed by all of Clarence's buddies, and they brutally gun him down before they kill him. And it's just unreal how these people are like so good at just shooting stuff and causing death and chaos and just act like they're having a ball doing it the whole time.
Yeah, and when it comes to the scene in when Murphy is like rushed to the hospital and that his life is like literally flashing before his eyes, like we see like flashes of like his family life, his wife and his son, and all of that is just taken away from him because of Boddicker and his gang. And when he eventually comes back as RoboCop, I mean, that's when the film gets even more exciting.
Yeah.
And I just love the design of RoboCop.
I do, and I personally really enjoy the epic reveal of him as they're kind of putting him together, so to speak, for the first time. And then when they give him like this standing ovation with this big crowd in the film, and you just love that moment for a second, and then you briefly get a look at what he looks like through the monitors he's passing through, but then you finally get a full-on look at him, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, and when Bob Morton asks what his prime directives are, I mean, they're serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law, but then we notice that there is a fourth prime directive, which is classified, which is revealed later, close to the third act of the movie.
Yeah. It makes sense to me that, like, you would have these directives programmed into something like this because you don't know, like, what he's really going to do, so you'd want a little insurance policy to keep him in check.
And the gun sound effects in this movie are some of the best in an 80s action movie, especially for the Auto 9 machine pistol. The sound of it is probably one of my favorite sounds for a machine gun. And then we get a sequence. I mean, it's not necessarily a montage, but I mean, it would have been really great if they did have a montage with RoboCop stopping like various crimes throughout old Detroit, like stopping a guy from robbing a convenience store, and then stop a couple of guys from assaulting a woman, and eventually ends up with shooting one of the guys in the balls. Your move, creep. And stopping a hostage situation at City Hall. And of course, because of like all of this, I mean, he becomes a celebrity. And his public service message, but he like looks at the camera when the guy asks if he has a special message for kids watching at home, he just looks at the camera and says, "Stay out of trouble."
Yeah, I mean, I get what you mean when it comes to, like, it probably might have scored some points more if it was montage, but at the same time, I really think that the way that they went was probably the best way because it pretty much kind of breaks away, I think, from, like, what you'd normally expect from a newly formed type of hero sort of thing, and at the same time, I kind of read about, when it came to this film, that they were, like, when they came up with it, they were trying to go for something like a knight in shining armor, and I think the sequences really kind of emphasize that.
But Murphy begins to regain his humanity, starting off with this one scene where he's having a nightmare of when he was murdered by Boddicker and his gang, and Lewis realizes that RoboCop is Murphy, especially in one brief moment in a scene where he's introduced to everybody when he was target practicing, and when he does the gun trick with his machine pistol, she's like, Murphy, it's you. And of course, I mean, he doesn't like recognize her or like know what she's talking about. So I mean, he just pisses off.
Yeah, because he just says, I must go. Somewhere there is a crime out there. And then he takes the police car and leaves. But right after that, he goes to a gas station that apparently had a crime in progress reported or something. And Emil, one of Clarence's henchmen, recognizes RoboCop as Murphy when he says, dead or alive, you're coming with me. And he's just freaking out because he knows him, and it's like deja vu all over again. He's like, hey, I know you. We killed you. You're dead. We killed you.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable because right after that, he accidentally shoots the gas line and gets in contact with one of his cigarettes and just blows up the whole gas station.
Yeah, and it's even more satisfying, but RoboCop, emerging from the flames and shooting the tire off of Emil's bike and him just, crashing into a car. And after Murphy goes through the database, I mean, he decides to revisit his old home, and we get more flashbacks of his family life, and when the realization on his face when he realizes that he's pretty much lost everything, you can't help but feel sorry for him. Boddicker in one scene kills Bob Morton for Dick Jones, and let's just say Morton went out with a bang. But out of all the action sequences in the film, I would say the cocaine factory shootout is probably the standout in my personal opinion. Just seeing RoboCop just mowing motherfuckers down left and right, and the score is just powerful. Basil Del Toro, rest in peace. This is probably your finest work, and especially the main RoboCop theme. Dun, 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 dun. The second you hear that, I mean, you instantly recognize that that's the RoboCop theme.
Yeah, I mean, unless, of course, you haven't seen the movie before. But after the first watch, yeah, I'd say just about anyone would. And I really enjoyed the Cocaine Factory standoff because, it's like I guess you could say it's one of the most iconic scenes in the film because it's when RoboCop, really just starts to let loose, show what he can do, not just on a couple petty criminals or anything like that, but even one of the most dangerous operations made in the criminal empire. It's like almost nothing to him. And
when it comes to the moment where he confronts Boddicker and just smashing him through windows, I mean, and while reading his rights, and Boddicker is just spilling his guts about being in cahoots with Dick Jones, and right when RoboCop is this close to crushing his neck because I mean he's strong as hell, that's when the third Prime Directive kicks in that prevents him from killing him. They definitely amp up the tension in the beginning of the third act when RoboCop decides to confront Dick Jones at OCP, and that's when the fourth directive kicks in when he attempts to arrest him, which we figure out is any attempt to arrest a senior officer of OCP would result in shutdown.
Yeah, I mean, that to me was an interesting last directive, but I could kind of see why it's classified because it's meant to show that RoboCop is not completely invincible. He does have his weaknesses. It's just that it's really hard to figure that out at times because he can essentially survive anything. But he, in that moment, pretty much realizes that he's not an ordinary cop. He's just a product to them, and they didn't want him getting out of control. And then Dick Jones basically confesses to killing Bob Morton because he made a mistake, and now he believes it's time to erase that mistake and has RoboCop just battered and beaten all over the place with the M209, and it's just unbelievable to me. But
and there is also a humorous moment with the 209. I mean, after his fight with RoboCop, where he tries to where the Ed 209 tries to take the stairs, and it just like ends up falling down the stairs, and we hear it like screeching and everything. Because the over the top sound effects that the Ed 209 makes is just so fucking funny. After RoboCop's fight with the Ed 209, he's confronted by a SWAT team who is sent by that were sent by Jones in order to kill him. And Lois comes in, and she saves him, and they go to the old factory where he was murdered so he can repair himself. And when he takes off his mask, I would say the makeup work done on Peter Weller for that look, I'm just like, that is a stellar work of art, in my personal opinion.
It's like whatever little bit was left of Alex Murphy is still there on his face, but at the same time, you can tell that it's him, but he's essentially more machine than man and is desperately trying to remember his past life as Murphy, and little by little, he's trying to regain his humanity.
And there is one thing that some of you might notice, especially on repeated viewing, is that his voice is robotic throughout like most of the movie, but after he removes his mask, that's when his normal voice is like his human voice again. So Murphy and Lewis team up to fight Boddicker and his gang in the old factory. This time they're armed with Cobra assault cannons in order to kill RoboCop. And all of this it's just adrenaline fueled. It's just, every second of it is just action movie gold. And especially the moment where Emil crashes the van into a vat of toxic waste, and he just comes out and he's all goopy and shit. And I'm just like, this is some Toxic Avenger shit right there. It just gets worse for him when Clarence decides to crash into him with his car. And
yeah, and the ironic thing about all that to me is that out of everyone in the gang at that time when they were going in for the final fight, he was the one person that Clarence actually asked to stay in the van.
Well, yeah.
Basically, that's
thought he would take the easy way out, but nope. They kill the rest of the gang, but Lewis gets injured in the process. But she takes out Leon with one of the assault cannons, and right when Murphy is pinned down by all this debris, and right when Boddicker it looks like he's about to go for the killing blow with this piece of debris. That's when Murphy like jams the terminal strip in Boddicker's neck. It's just like so satisfying. Like every time that happens, just like, yes! A very satisfying death for such a despicable character like Clarence Boddicker.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it is satisfying, although I must admit, sometimes I think maybe just a bit overkill because of the way that it was executed. You know, like when you like take one of those and just lose part of your neck.
And it doesn't stop there. Oh no. Murphy goes back to OCP, this time being prepared for the Ed 209, blows it away with the Cobra assault cannon. I mean, double tap, mind you.
Yeah, I mean, he got 2 shots in, and by the time that thing was done, all it really had left was its legs.
Yeah, and you gotta love the toe twitching moment.
And for the final scene in this movie, it doesn't get much better than this. When Murphy enters the boardroom with the board of directors for OCP, and he's pretty much battered up from all his battles and unmasked, and everyone's shocked to see him like this, and the old man is the only one that stays calm, and he asks, "How can we help you, officer?" And he says, "Dick Jones is wanted for murder."
And that's when he presents the evidence linking Dick Jones to Bob Morton's murder, and that's when Dick Jones he gets desperate. I mean, he gets the gun, he takes the old man hostage, but Murphy can't do anything because of the fourth directive keeping him from doing anything against Jones. But when the old man says, "Dick, you're fired."
Thank you. Yeah.
It gets even more satisfying when Murphy kills Jones. Although the effects showing Jones like falling to his death, I mean, that's like one of the few effects that don't really hold up that much. But that's only a minor nitpick, really.
Yeah, like just a small one. And all things considered, I think, despite that, the film really is just one of those classic, iconic '80s movies that I think, if if you pick the audience carefully, of course, just about anyone would enjoy.
Yeah, and and it's always just beautiful to hear when the old man asks of RoboCop what's his name. He just turns and he just says Murphy. For me, RoboCop is just like one of those movies that you can just watch over and over again without even getting bored of it. At least that has that effect on me. The action is just incredible. I mean, and it's also like one of those action movies where you actually are like emotionally invested in the characters. The writing is stellar, and Paul Verhoeven's direction is just spot on. And this is my personal favorite film that he's directed. And the performances are great, especially from Peter Weller, who is just excellent as RoboCop. And that incredible score is just so unforgettable.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the best action films from the 80s.
Yeah, and I personally am glad that after all these years, it seems that the public still holds this film in such high esteem, and I really hope that Peter Wellers knows that no matter how old this film may get, I'm certain that for a lot of people, he will always be RoboCop.
I'm gonna give RoboCop an A plus. What did y'all think of the film? Let me know in the comments below. And this was definitely a very interesting 80s May. After They Live, this, and Aliens as my 3-part finale. This is definitely going to be very interesting. And I really can't wait for next year's. So definitely going to be very exciting for what we have coming up next. But I want to give a big thank you to Cameron for helping me out this year.
Of course, bud. Always happy to lend a helping hand.
Yeah. And we'll be back pretty soon, continuing on our thoughts on the Fox X-Men movies leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine. Definitely can't wait for that. And guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me.